Got a question from Callum. Callum, good to hear from you. After a few years of training, I now know that the clean grip deadlift is my go-to deadlift variation. So clean grip is just the standard grip like this. That is your competition deadlift. And of course, the snatch deadlift would be your hands almost out to the collars. And if you're taller, out to the collars. I did a gym max lift of 145K this evening at a weight of 93K for your information. For reasons that aren't important for this discussion, I can't hook grip or use the mixed grip, which is why I need to now use straps to add load. Do you have any tips and or insights on how to transition to using straps with the aim to get at least close to a double bodyweight deadlift, and maybe also how to improve the clean grip deadlift itself, as I love the lift, please? I remember you saying you had lifted a huge weight before Dick showed you the mixed grip, and I couldn't remember the relationship between that and your max deadlift, but it was a cool story. Okay. Interesting, Colin, and for those of you who know my career, my favorite deadlift variation is the snatch grip deadlift. As I mentioned earlier, when my squat snatch started getting better and better. Oh, by the way, sometimes I'll say squat snatch just to clarify that from like the power snatch or other variations. But the snatch grip deadlift, I mean, I started doing those in 75, 76. And that's when I fully figured out what it meant to be linked together, knitted together. And I think I had to get my arms away from my body to teach my upper body to lock everything down. I'm also a fan, correctly done, in the deficit deadlift. And the way I teach it, if you know my work, I'm a huge fan of the Romanian deadlift. But I actually think that if you do deficit deadlifts and you try to do them, so a deficit deadlift, folks, is when my feet are on platforms and the bell is going to slide through them. I use Brett Contreras' deficit deadlift. It's just that it's the T handle. Back in the day, I used to call those the Hungarian core blasters. It's interesting because that information is in Tim Ferriss's book, but there's no, he talks about the Dave Draper form, but there's no mention of, that, me and a bunch of lunatics came up with the modern version, which is just funny to think about. But the deficit deadlift, you either use a big kettlebell or you probably could hold a dumbbell like this, though. I always struggle when I have a big dumbbell and all I got is my fingers around the end. I use the T-bar, and you stand tall, and I like to so I'm on the platform, stand tall, and I like to let the weight drift backwards a bit to make it more swing-like. And then when I feel my hamstrings really start to stretch, that's when I know it's working best. Done correctly, the snatch grip deadlift, done correctly, the deficit deadlift are very helpful in sports performance. They both teach you things about the human body. Now, for most people, though, you'll notice most of the time in my recommendations, I recommend the rack deadlift, where you bring the weight up. Now, in the deficit deadlift, you bring your feet up. In the rack deadlift, you bring the bar up, and either 1 inch below the knee or just above the knees, and you deadlift that way. I find that's the easiest way for people to get a true hinge, and we don't get that lower back ouch. And if something goes wrong, you just drop in the hits. Those are my deadlift variations that I like the most. The clean grip deadlift, by the way, is probably the one I personally hate the most because I might as well clean it if I'm going to do all that work. But the story is in the 198-pound class, 90-kilo class at the gym. The gym record in the deadlift was set by a power lifter who deadlifted 550. And so one day in working out, I said to Dick, is this heavy? Can I break the record? He goes, well, let's find out. And we loaded up 555. And as I was walking up to the bar, Dick just said, oh, and hold your hands like this. And he told me to use that mixed grip. So my first heavy deadlift was 550. And then on a bet with Barbarillo, I deadlifted 6. And then in a weightlifting meet, because Utah State needed a 100-kilo lifter for this powerlifting meet. I found out about it on Thursday and I lifted on the meet on Saturday. I deadlifted 628 because that was, whatever it was, 5 pounds more than the last person to fail. And that's my deadlift history. So how do we improve your clean grip deadlift and use straps? Well, the one thing about straps, now there's a downside to straps, and they become very addictive. And I think that's okay. When I was young, there was a big controversy about whether you should ever snatch or clean with straps. I got some good advice, it might have been from Jim Schmitz, that using straps on the clean and the jerk was really brutal on your wrists. And as a thrower, I couldn't afford to do that. So I just followed that. It is interesting, if you ever want to just instantly improve your Olympic snatch, put on straps, because you will lift more, which will give you an insight about the importance of grip work for Olympic lifters. So if you're going to use straps, I'd recommend this. This is what I think. I think you should, while you're learning straps, should use straps on every single set. So if all you've got is on the bar and 2 bumpers, 60 kilos, strap up, because what you want to do is you want to learn that, I can't explain how to use a strap because it's like I can't explain how to type anymore, because you get so used to doing it, you forget the little learning curve. Like I can tell myself, okay, I'm gonna put my hand on a bar with a strap right now. I can do the little finger work it takes to slide it in. So I would suggest that you strap yourself into the bar. Now you're strapped in. Then you replant your feet, you reset your hips, you break up, I don't know, whatever phrase you want to use. You put a pencil between your triceps and your lats and you try to break it, and you do the Mr. Universe chest, and drive your chin up, and even with 60 pounds, drive those heels into the ground and stand up tall. And as you progress up 60, 70, 80, 90, however you do it, use the straps, because you got to practice using straps. This also lends us to the downside of straps, is your grip does get, well, 2 things happen. You might lose this crush grip that you need, one of the great benefits of the Olympic lifts and the deadlift. And number 2, your hands might get soft. Now, there's nothing wrong with soft hands. It's funny because I still have calluses on my hands here, but when I do certs, I don't rip my hands because my hands continue to have a little bit of toughness to them. If you, this is going to sound so strange, but it's true. If you use straps all the time, your hands soften up so that if you ever don't have straps, you can tear your skin. I know that sounds insane, but it's true and it happens. So I think this is a really good idea. I would say strap early and often. Make sure you lock in everything before every single rep. And, I don't know if you touch and go on your deadlift or you stop and recover. But with straps, when you stop and recover, we used to drop our head down and raise our hips up for a second. So I'm on straps, weight comes to the ground, I drop my head down, I lift my hips to the sky. It's kind of a hamstring stretch, but also takes some of the tension off. Loosen your arms, but you keep the straps on the bar, and then re-lock down and go. I hope that made sense. I'd like to say, it's funny sometimes before I answer a question, I think I know what I was talking about there, but the clarity of my explanation probably needed some love. So thank you, my friend. That's a good question.